Hey everyone, welcome back. We're diving into something a little different today, but something I think a lot of you out there are probably thinking about too.
Yeah, how to get better at actually speaking English.
Exactly. Not just, passing exams or understanding grammar, but like really being able to communicate confidently and naturally.
Especially if you're thinking about things like career advancement or even just navigating a new city.
Right. Like what if you're trying to make friends or even just order food in a place where everybody speaks English?
I mean, those are the kind of situations where you don't want to be fumbling for words.
Totally. And for this deep dive, we've been looking at this really practical resource. It's a transcript from a YouTube video by Ishan Sharma.
Yeah, the title's pretty ambitious. Speak English fluently in 21 days, master communication skills.
21 days. It sounds almost like too good to be true, right?
Well, that's what we're here to figure out. Like, what are the actual strategies that someone can use to get better at speaking English in a relatively short amount of time?
Exactly. And I think what makes Ishan's perspective so interesting is that he really emphasizes how English opened up a lot of opportunities for him personally.
Yeah, he talks about working with international companies and even like earning in dollars, which I think is something a lot of people aspire to.
For sure. And it really highlights how English isn't just an academic subject. It's like a real-world tool that can help you achieve your goals.
Absolutely. And one thing I found really relatable was when he talked about how some of his friends were like top of their class in English, but then they'd get into a social situation and just freeze up.
Oh, yeah, I've totally seen that happen.
Yeah, it's like they know all the rules, but they haven't actually learned how to put them into practice.
Right, and that's exactly the gap that we're trying to bridge here. So with this deep dive, we're going to take Ishan's 21-day plan and really break it down into like actionable steps that you can start implementing right away.
Yeah, we're talking about concrete strategies for understanding English better, thinking in English, and ultimately communicating more effectively.
And we're going to do it without overwhelming you with too much information.
So let's jump right in. What does Ishan say about the first 7 days?
Well, he calls it building a foundation. And the main focus here is just getting used to hearing English as much as possible.
Like immersion, right?
Yeah, exactly. So he recommends things like listening to English news, reading English newspapers, and even checking out podcasts and videos in English.
Which, by the way, is a great reason to subscribe to Ishan's channel if you haven't already.
Totally. It's like make English a part of your daily routine.
Surround yourself with the language.
Now, one of the techniques that he talks about for this first week is called shadow the speaker.
Oh, interesting. What's that about?
So basically, you listen to an English speaker and then try to copy them as close as possible.
Like mimic their pronunciation and intonation?
Yeah, everything. Like even the pauses and the rhythm of their speech. And he suggests doing this with like snippets of videos or even just reading passages from books out loud.
Wow, that's actually a really cool idea. It's like you're training your mouth and your brain to produce the sounds of English more naturally.
Exactly. And it helps you pick up on those subtle things that you might not notice if you're just passively listening.
Now, along with those techniques, Ishan also recommends a few specific apps that can be really helpful for learning English.
Yeah, he mentions Duolingo, Memrise, and ELSA Speak.
I've heard of Duolingo, but what are the other two about?
So Memrise is more focused on helping you actually speak the language. It uses things like flashcards and spaced repetition to help you remember vocabulary and phrases.
Ah, that makes sense. And ELSA Speak.
That one's really cool. It uses AI to give you feedback on your pronunciation. It can even pinpoint specific sounds that you're struggling with.
Oh, wow. That's pretty high tech.
Right. So if you're serious about improving your English, those are definitely some tools you should check out.
Definitely. Now, another important piece of advice that Ishan gives for this early stage is to keep your vocabulary simple.
Yeah, he even says that you should aim to use language that a fifth grader could understand.
Huh, I never thought about it like that, but it makes total sense.
Like sometimes we get caught up in trying to sound sophisticated, but really the most important thing is to be clear and easy to understand.
Right, because if people can't understand you, then it doesn't really matter how impressive your vocabulary is.
Exactly. Now, to get you started with actually using English, Ishan has this challenge that he calls the 555 challenge.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's that all about?
So for the first 7 days, you have to send 5 text messages and 5 emails every day.
In English.
Yep. And it can be to anyone, friends, family, colleagues, whoever.
Yeah. That's a clever way to get people practicing their writing skills without putting too much pressure on them.
Yeah. And he also recommends using Grammarly, which is a really helpful tool for catching mistakes and improving your writing.
Oh yeah, I use Grammarly all the time. It's a lifesaver.
So that's basically the gist of the first week. It's all about laying that foundation by immersing yourself in English and starting to actively use it in a low-pressure way.
Sounds like a solid plan. Now what happens in days 8 through 14?
So this phase is all about practicing and self-assessment.
Okay, so we're moving from passive listening and writing to actually speaking out loud.
Exactly. And the 555 challenge continues, but this time it involves something a little more challenging.
Oh.
Ishan suggests taking those people you've been messaging and emailing and actually scheduling meetings with them.
Like video calls or even face-to-face conversations?
Yeah, either one. The goal is to actually start speaking English out loud.
Now, I imagine that can be pretty intimidating for some people.
Totally.
Yeah.
But Ishan makes a really important point here. He says it's totally fine if the other person responds in your native language. The key is for you to make the effort to speak English.
Right, so it's about getting over that initial fear of making mistakes and just starting to speak.
Exactly. And to help you track your progress and identify areas for improvement, he has this really cool self-assessment technique.
Ah, I love a good self-assessment. What's this one involve?
So basically, you record yourself speaking for about 5 minutes every day.
5 minutes. About what?
Literally anything. It could be about your day, your thoughts on a particular topic, or even just a random story. The important thing is that you're speaking English out loud.
And these recordings are just for your own personal use, right?
Yeah, definitely. They're not for sharing with anyone unless you want to.
Makes sense. So once you have these recordings, what do you do with them?
Well, Ishan breaks down the review process into 4 distinct steps.
4 steps, huh? Okay, let's hear them.
So the first step is what he calls the audio review. Basically, you listen back to the recording without looking at the video.
So you're just focusing on how you sound.
Exactly. Pay attention to your clarity, your tone of voice, any instances where you stutter or stammer. You might even pick up on some pronunciation errors that you weren't aware of.
Yeah, I can definitely see how that would be helpful.
And remember that app, ELSA Speak, that we talked about earlier?
Yeah, the pronunciation one.
Well, that can be a really useful tool for this step as well.
Cool. Okay, what's step 2?
Step 2 is the visual review, and this time you mute the audio and just watch the video.
So you're observing your body language?
Yeah, things like your hand gestures, your facial expressions, your posture. See if they align with what you're saying, and if they come across as natural and engaging.
I never really thought about that before, but I bet it's really eye-opening.
It totally is. You might be surprised at what you notice.
Okay, so we've listened to ourselves, we've watched ourselves. What's next?
Step 3 is called subtitle creation. And for this one, Ishan recommends using a tool called Descript.
Descript. What's that?
It's basically a transcription software that can automatically generate subtitles for your videos. And the cool thing is, they have a free version.
Oh, sweet. So you can use it to get a transcript of your recording.
Yeah, exactly. And this is really helpful because it allows you to see your speech patterns in writing.
Like if you're using a lot of filler words or repeating certain phrases.
Yeah, all of that. And once you see it in writing, it becomes much easier to identify areas where you can be more concise and articulate.
That's so smart. And finally, step 4.
Step 4 is the mistake review. And this is where you take all the insights you've gathered from the previous 3 steps and consciously try to avoid those mistakes in your next recording.
So it's all about making small, incremental improvements over time.
Exactly. And the key is to be consistent with this process. Like, the more you record yourself, review your recordings, and make those adjustments, the faster you'll see progress.
Makes sense. So by the end of these 2 weeks, you've got a solid foundation, you've started speaking out loud, and you've developed a system for tracking your progress.
Right. And now we move into the final phase, days 15 through 21.
Okay, this is where it gets real, right?
Yeah, this is all about taking those skills you've been practicing and putting them to use in the real world.
Ishan calls it going out and engaging.
So what does that actually look like?
Well, he encourages you to start attending events and meetups in your city, especially ones that align with your interests.
Like if you're into tech, you could go to a hackathon or a conference.
Exactly. And the idea is that when you're surrounded by people who share your passions, it's easier to find common ground and start conversations.
Right. Like you already have something to talk about.
And a big part of this phase is learning how to do small talk.
Yeah, like being able to strike up conversations with people you don't know very well.
And Ishan actually gives some really practical tips for this. He suggests starting with simple, open-ended questions like, are you enjoying this event? Or what brings you here?
Right, and then just Listen attentively and try to find things you have in common.
And he also emphasizes the importance of exchanging contact information so you can continue those conversations later.
And networking is definitely a key skill, both professionally and personally.
Absolutely. Now, another thing that Ishan addresses in this final week is the fear of public speaking.
Oh yeah, that's a big one for a lot of people.
And he's really open about his own struggles with it. He talks about how he used to be terrified of speaking in front of groups, but he eventually overcame that fear.
He even mentions that he's given a TED Talk.
Talk about a transformation.
Right, and he makes this really reassuring point. Often, when you're speaking in public, people are so focused on their own thoughts and experiences that they barely even notice if you make a mistake.
That's a good thing to remember.
Yeah, take some of the pressure off.
Yeah.
Now, even though this phase is all about going out and engaging with others, Ishan still emphasizes the importance of clear thinking and structure.
He mentions using PowerPoint presentations as a way to organize his thoughts and make sure his message comes across clearly.
Right, and it shows that even in casual conversations, it's helpful to have a clear idea of what you want to say.
And he also acknowledges that improvement takes time and effort. Like, he even admits that some of his early videos were kind of cringy.
We've all been there.
But the point is, everyone starts somewhere, and the key is to just keep practicing and learning from your mistakes.
So looking back at this whole 21-day challenge, Ishan's main takeaway is that consistency is key.
Like, if you put in the effort, even just an hour or two a day, you can make a significant difference in your English communication skills.
And he really frames it as a way to stand out from the crowd.
Like, in today's competitive job market, being able to communicate effectively in English is a huge advantage.
And he brings it back to his own personal experience. He talks about how his English skills opened up doors for him, like getting to work with US-based companies and speaking at corporate events.
It's a powerful reminder that English isn't just an academic subject. It's a skill that can really empower you to achieve your goals.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with this thought. It's never too late to start improving your English communication skills.
And maybe even more importantly, think about the specific situations in your life where better English communication would make a real difference.
Like, what's one small step you can take today to get started? Maybe it's downloading one of those apps we talked about, or sending a message to a friend in English.
The point is to just start somewhere and don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Because that's how we learn and grow.
And remember, you can always adapt these strategies to fit your own learning style and your own goals.
So keep practicing, keep learning, and most importantly, keep talking.
And who knows what doors might open for you.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Until next time.
See you then.